Hey everyone, I'm doing my informative speech. I'd like to talk to you guys about pre-hospital emergency care providers, paramedics, EMTs, everybody that's riding an ambulance or given any medical care kind of outside of the hospital. Before you call 911, we show up, that kind of deal. Um, so I'd like for you to think for a moment with me. You're rolling down the road, just going as fast as you can. You got loud lights and sirens blaring, and you're headed straight towards a car crash. Um, you get on scene, everybody's screaming, there's just a bunch of stuff going on. You have one simple job in that moment to find that patient, first of all, and then second of all, to take care of that patient, whatever is going wrong with them. That can be one of the worst days of their entire life. So you really need to make sure that you're able to take care of them and able to do what you need to do. So when we talk about that, what does the job actually look like? Um, it really looks a lot like providing care for your community, whether that's social, emotional, or physical. We can go to domestic calls, fights, medical problems. Sometimes we even go to people that are lonely. You think about somebody that's, in their 60s, 70s, 80s that doesn't see a lot of people, maybe doesn't get out of the house, doesn't have a driver's license. Oftentimes we'll even go to provide care just by spending time with folks like that. That's not really the purpose, but we end up doing it anyways. So I know that for a lot of folks, maybe this is our first time in college. I like to think back to when I was 18, 19 years old, and I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. Um, I had no idea that this was something that I would end up doing. Um, so I just like to say to all you guys, any of these informative speeches that you guys are doing, that's awesome. I feel like you guys are going to learn so much, and maybe you'll even find yourself doing what you're informant about someday. That's so exciting. So what I really want to do is just kind of talk a little bit about what I do in an ambulance because I feel like a lot of people don't know. It's not really talked about all that often. So going back to what we do, we provide care to the citizens of our area, whether that's physical, emotional, or social support. And then we assist in transporting folks. Maybe that's from a nursing home to a hospital or from the hospital back home, especially if they're bedbound, if they can't get in a car or they don't have any other transport to get places. So a lot of times we'll use an ambulance to get somebody from one place to another, even if there's not an emergency. So some of you may be interested in doing something like this. What would you do to get into this career? You would start at high school, finish your high school diploma, get your GED, whatever that looks like for you. And then you would do your EMT course. And EMT is kind of the gateway to start into all this. It can either be a month-long program. There's a couple of different programs through Knowles does a wilderness EMT, out in Wyoming. That's kind of crazy. You work at in the snow with helicopters, all the way down to you can do a semester-long course at a community college. A lot of times those are free or paid for by an agency if you volunteer for them. After that, you can go up to your EMTA, your EMT Advanced. You get a little bit more skills. You start to give IVs. You start to do some more drugs. Give more drugs. Don't do drugs. And you really get a better idea of kind of what that next step of care looks like inside an ambulance. You really get to start to do a lot more and be a lot more supportive. And then the final course is your EMT paramedic, or a lot of people will just call it a paramedic. Paramedics are the ones that are reading 12 leads, getting deep into cardiology, providing life-saving medication administration, doing all kinds of transcutaneous pacing or shocking through the skin. They give all kinds of different breathing treatments. You can paralyze and sedate people and intubate people, helping people breathe when they can't do it for themselves. A lot of just really, really, really aggressive interventions that can save somebody's life. So those are all things that you could do as an EMT paramedic. So overall, it looks like it ends up being about 3 years of school if you go straight out of high school. A semester for EMT, a semester for EMTA, and then about 2 years in EMT paramedic. After that, hopefully you've got a little bit of experience with a volunteer agency because you're ready to ride on a truck. There are different degree programs that you can go through. So you can get your associates in paramedicine, but also you can just go through and do a continuing education course. Either one is good. If you plan on teaching in the future, though, that degree path is really where you need to be going. So after school, what does it look like? I'm just kind of living in that right now. But essentially, you just start to do the job. Um, there isn't whole lot more to learn. I mean, you'll learn more on the job, but you've got all your baselines down. At that point, you start to get settled into figuring out how to spend your time outside of work and what that looks like, how to decompress, how to enjoy your time, and then understand how to do what works best for you to get into work every single day that you're on shift. Um, on your days off, you kind of see the world in a little bit of a different light because you're seeing things that most people never see. That can be a little bit weird. You can be driving down the road and say, "Oh, like I went to a call at that house the other day. That was really, I'm really glad that we were able to help that person." And you just, the world looks different in some ways. Um, Sometimes you need to be able to accept that you're not going to be able to tell people what's on your mind. Um, it's always obviously important to be able to find emotional and social help when you need it. Asking for help is never a bad thing, but it's an important thing to recognize that when you're out in the general public, there's definitely things that you see or that you like to talk about that you just can't with everybody else that you see. Just because they're like not socially acceptable things, or like things that most people really just don't need to hear. Um, but through this job, you definitely get a large sense of purpose and joy. I know that in my life, I've actually been a lot happier doing this job than I have in other jobs. Um, I enjoy volunteering and providing care in my community, and it just makes me really happy to be able to do that every single day. Um, I think it is important to talk about the pay. Most agencies in the United States, on average, or I think it was in North Carolina on average, are paying about 53,000 for a paramedic. There are some that are paying significantly more than that. There are some private companies that are paying less than that. But it's not a massive budget, but it's definitely enough to party with. So that's pretty much what it looks like. If you really, really want to just roll down the road as fast as you can in an F450 and pick up somebody off the ground, you too can save lives. And just remember that your every day is somebody's worst day. Thank you so much.